Thanks to LaborFirst for sponsoring today's episode of Better Bad Ideas. Now let's get into it.
I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. So we have gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson from the great state of Michigan, Wellesley College, Harvard Law School. Why the hell do you want to be in politics? It's not for the money, clearly.
Because if we don't show up, then people making decisions don't listen to working people. And I saw that firsthand. My parents were teachers, public school teachers, special education teachers growing up. And I saw how hard they worked every day to make sure their kids, the students that they were fighting for, just had access to the ability to get good education. And so many people in power weren't listening to them and were making cuts to their program and just making it harder for them to show up for their kids. And so I got involved in politics out of a real, when you see your parents treated with injustice, right, and their voices dismissed and not heard, that's guttural, right? Like that changes, at least for me. And so I thought, well, if the people in power aren't going to listen to the people, then let's change the power structure to make sure that democracy actually works.
So at what age did you recognize that your parents weren't being treated fairly, or you were identifying these social justice issues?
6 years old.
That needed to be addressed. 6 years old.
I remember being 6 years old, watching my parents in the classroom, how hard they were working. And then they'd go home at night, work on IEPs, like stay up all night talking to parents. And then I would see and hear them talk about funding cuts, worries about their healthcare coverage. And I was so wrong to me that
they're state employees. Most people that go to work for the state or a state or work
county. Yeah.
You go there, you're going to do 30 years. You don't have to worry about anything. You're just going to do your time and get out of there. Your parents were different, I assume.
They love, they're special education teachers for a reason, right? Who doesn't have a seat at the table?
Sure.
It was kids who needed extra help in the classroom. That's where they both went. That's actually how they met. And it was seeing them ignored by decision makers that were in the way of their service. That to me just felt wrong. It felt unjust. And I thought, well, in a democracy, the people are supposed to have the power, right? And so I thought, well, if we get more people voting, if we really make sure the system works better, it was a broken system, then they shouldn't have to worry about access to healthcare. Thank God they were in a union, right? Like because of they were PSEA members, they now have pensions today, right? They're now taken care of. But
are your parents still with us?
Yeah, they're still alive, and the kids that they taught still call them and say thank you, right?
What was the dynamic of the special education? Was it just like ADHD? Autism has been running rampant probably for the last 10 or 15 years, mainstream.
Yeah.
It's been around forever. And I was one of the, I founded a huge charity in Boston that we started in 2007, which was Light Up the Night Gala for autism.
I've been there. Yeah.
And, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And we raised, close to $1 million at the end of the night. It's still going on. But it's frightening to see the burnout ratio of these teachers.
Yeah.
And going back, you're talking probably the 80s and 90s when your parents were teaching. You didn't have free access, through the internet and all this other stuff for emails with the parents and everything. So, it is crazy the amount of or lack of funding and or progress to this day being made for kids with special needs. And a lot of that comes down to insurance, which I know you're a huge advocate of, having the best health insurance, having the best coverage, and having advocacy. How is that going to affect your campaign? Is that one of your major platforms? Education, insurance. What are some of the things you're running on?
I want to do three things for the people of Michigan: drive down the cost of living, which is skyrocketing, raise wages especially for good, well-paying union jobs, and be a fighter for the people when you see people coming to Michigan to trample on our rights and freedoms, to rip away the safety of our communities, to make sure the citizens of Michigan know I will be a fighter for their rights, for their freedoms, for their safety, just as I've been as Secretary of State. But it starts and ends with addressing the affordability crisis right now that I see every day as the Secretary of State. I'm the Chief Motor Vehicle Officer in the state, so I run the DMV. Makes me very popular. Everyone loves going to the DMV.
Right.
But we've actually transformed it to make sure you no longer have to wait in line, that we're saving people time, saving people money.
But that was by appointment only, though, right? Wasn't that controversial?
Oh, well, during COVID, yes, we did that. But now you can walk in.
Right.
Or you can let us know ahead of time that you're coming, which is how we look at it. If you let us know ahead of time that you're coming, and it enables us to say, this is what you need to bring. It's just about communication to make sure the experience is better. But the bottom line is, whether you walk in or you make a scheduled visit ahead of time, you can be in and out in our offices in 20 minutes or less. And it gets back to when I took office, I talked to our employees. I visited every single one of our 130 offices and heard horror stories about mistreatment in the workplace and other types of things that we work to address. And then talked to our customers, the people of Michigan. I remember going into an office not much larger than this room. There were maybe 40, 50 people packed into it. And I saw this man sitting there, big burly man with his son who was about 16, waiting to get his first license. And he said, "Ma'am, are you the Secretary of State? This is my first week in office." And I said, "Yes." And he looked at me and he looked around the room with 50 people in it, waiting for hours to get their basic services done. And he looked at me and said, "This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable." And I looked him in the eye and I said, "You're right. And we're going to change it." And we did.
So you ran for Secretary of State in 2010.
Yeah. Yes.
2010.
Way back
15
when?
Years. Almost 16 years ago. Why Secretary of State? I mean, you look, it's a pretty complicated job, especially nowadays. Last night or yesterday, the office in Fulton County, got raided based upon 2020 allegation that voter fraud is happening. It's a pretty tough job nowadays, especially in light of the current administration and still their claims that there was fraud in the 2020 election. Are you concerned about Michigan after the raid in Georgia?
I am concerned about the ongoing use of lies and misinformation that have long been disproven. I mean, the 2020 election was secure, accurate, and a reflection of the will of the people.
Right.
Period.
So when you ran in 2010, I mean, voter fraud wasn't on the mind of people. What made you want to run for that job and continue to run? Because
I get to show up every day and make sure government works for the people.
Are you a political junkie?
No, actually, I'm not. I'm someone who sees unfairness and wants to do something about it. And I do see the political arena, government, as one of the most efficient ways that you can help people if it's done well, right? If you get in there and do the right thing. And there are far too many politicians on both sides of the aisle that get in there and do not do the right thing, that are beholden to their funders and special interests. And so I saw that from the outside, and I started my career in Selma, Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I read, that's what I was going to ask you next. I mean, you seem to dedicate your life to civil rights. Yeah. Early on, before you went to law school, you were in Alabama working for a nonprofit, fighting for civil rights.
I was investigating neo-Nazis and white supremacists undercover as a 20-year-old.
That's funny that you did that, because there's been some controversy, like everybody else that runs a big organization, where there's been allegations of discrimination and all this other stuff under your tenure. And I mean, I'm in an organization where we want people to perform. We don't care what you look like. We don't care what religion you practice or anything else. We just want the most qualified people there. So it's got to be kind of frustrating at times, especially when you dedicated your life, you worked investigating some of the stuff, fighting for inequalities, and then to have people say, well, there's discrimination in the office. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, and there's not. I mean,
people love controversy.
And I'm running for governor in a moment where people are continue to use lies and misinformation to further agendas.
No way.
But my record speaks for itself. As you said, every single moment of my life, when no one was looking, I chose to fight for equality. I chose to fight for justice. That's who I am. It's in my blood. It's who I'll be as governor. And when I was 20, I went to Alabama undercover and exposed extremist organizations.
When you said you were undercover, what did you do?
Oh, I would pose as a journalist and go in and cover rallies, neo-Nazi gatherings, and take information so that when there are crimes committed, like bombings of synagogues or other types of hate crimes, we brought the evidence to the FBI that there was much more than just a crime. This was actually a hate crime. This was actually rooted in members of organizations who were organizing to create violence to further their extremist views. And so I just was there to listen and to take notes and to assist in making sure those who were planning to harm people because of who they were or what they looked like were held accountable.
That had to be interesting.
Yeah, it taught me to be unafraid. I mean, I remember a moment early on when I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, all alone in my hotel room after spending the day interviewing folks. And I was worried that they were going to come and kill me. And I just thought, they're going to find out who I am. And I'm all by myself. What am I going to do? And I had a moment and I thought I can run away and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's too scary. Or I'm going to get to work. Right. And I got up in the middle of the night and wrote an article that ultimately exposed the leader of this organization who was claiming to be, Hitler reincarnated, and exposed him and took the organization down. So I learned in that moment that you use fear to get to work. Right. And that honed me for when in 2020, when the president himself and his supporters were trying to show up on my lawn with armed protesters trying to get me to block the will of the people and overturn a very accurate and secure election. To say no, to stand up to bullies, no matter how powerful, no matter how many threats they throw my way.
Well, let's talk about that.
When it's in furtherance of what's right.
2020 was very controversial, the election. There was all kinds of allegations coming from the Republican GOP side of voter fraud, that the election was rigged. Is there any way to rig an election? I mean, state by state, everybody has different policies and procedures. Do you think it is possible? I mean, you being the Secretary of State of Michigan and imposing and putting in efficiencies, and I think you utilized $4.5 million in COVID money under the CARES Act to allow everybody to be registered. I think it was 7.7 million people. Is there in other states the ability to have fraud?
If anyone in Michigan or anywhere else where we have paper ballots and bipartisan poll workers, 1,500 clerks and post-election audits, if anyone tried to do anything untoward, small or large, in an election, we would catch it. And we have. When there are small instances of voter fraud or anything, one or two things here, it's very rare. But when it happens, we find it and we prosecute it. And so the bottom line is, were there, any types of widespread fraud in 2020, we would have found it by now. There would be evidence of it.
You're clearly just speaking about Michigan.
Across the board. I mean, there's been no actual evidence. There's been lots of allegations tossed around, lots of threats thrown around, lots of violence resulting from those threats and allegations, but no actual evidence that anything untoward happened, that the 2020 election, there was no evidence that the 2020 election was anything but an accurate, secure election that reflected the will of the people. And I always say in this work, transparency is our friend. Come on, be a poll worker. See up close how many secure pieces we have in place to ensure only valid votes are counted and every valid vote is counted, and how we work diligently to ensure if there is ever anything that goes wrong in an election, we hold those folks accountable. So
what have you changed in the election process since you have been the Secretary of State?
Well, when I took office, Sean, we were ranked 31st in the country for our election systems. We're now number 2. Michigan is now number 2 in the country for secure and accessible elections. We have modernized how you register to vote to make it more secure. We've actually cleaned up the voter rolls to ensure they're more accurate than ever before. We've made it so that when you come into our Secretary of State offices, if you're eligible to vote, you can be registered on the spot through automatic voter registration. And on the other side, we've made it easier than ever to cast your ballot, whether you choose to vote from home, in the security of your own home or workplace, whether you choose to vote early in person or on election day, as many people choose to do. It is easier to vote. There are more options to vote than ever before, and that's why we have seen back to back the highest turnout elections in Michigan's history under my tenure. We now lead the nation in voter turnout, in youth voter turnout. People on both sides of the aisle are voting at higher numbers than ever before, and I'm really proud of that because democracy works and our economy works best when everyone has a seat at the table.
I think we're a society of convenience, right? We hit that send button on a computer and we want our packages the previous day. And, there's criticism about, a lot of these efficiencies that people, Secretary of States around the country are putting in to encourage, but also make it more convenient for voter turnout and people to vote. Now, some people don't like that because they think you should really get to the polls, and if you're truly passionate about politics and truly passionate about picking the right leaders, that you will make the effort to physically go there. But in a society of convenience, you can argue the other way. Look, we're busy, 2 families work, two people in a family work. There's a lot of demands personally on working families. So I should be allowed to exercise the most quickest and efficient way to vote. Do you think people buy into that, or do you think?
One, I think it's about options. I think, you and I may have our preference on how we want to vote and have our voice heard. Everyone does. And the job of government is to kind of show up and make sure your voice is heard, however you choose to express it. And the beautiful thing about Michigan is that a lot of these changes were put in place because citizens on both sides of the aisle demanded it. They actually worked and organized and amended our state constitution to expand access to the vote, to institute early voting and other types, and a right to vote from home. So I was proud to simply be the CEO of the agency that administered these voter-driven changes. And the result is clear. On both sides of the aisle, voters all across Michigan have embraced these options. You see essentially a third of voters vote from home, a third vote early, and a third vote on Election Day. And that's the goal, to just say, however you want to express yourself and make sure your voice is heard, we'll show up for you and make sure that happens.
Right. And we have the same, we have in our union election, the Teamsters, it's funny, one member, one vote, which is great. We're the most democratic union in the country. And we mail our ballots out to 1.3 million members with a return self-addressed stamped envelope. It's an antiquated system, but it's, the system that we have to follow out of the DOL. And, we mail it right to your home. All you have to do is check the box, and we get probably 15 to 16% of participation in the election, which, is a significant amount. I think our last election, we had the highest voter participation because there was a thirst for change. There was a real election where it was going to matter and change the culture of the unions for the next generation. So people were interested. Now,
it makes you a better leader.
Well, yeah,
right?
But some people look at it as like, we don't want to go to an easier system because the less turnout, the more favorable it is for, the incumbents to remain in office, which I don't see that. I'm on the same page as you. I want as many people voting, as many people exercising their rights, whether it's in the union election or state or federal elections. And, you make a great point. Transparency is huge. Yeah,
it's our friend. We love transparency.
And trust.
Yeah,
building
exactly.
Trust.
It builds trust.
When the process is transparent, people tend to trust you. Why are people not buying into that? You still have people out there saying you should get to the polls and you shouldn't. This is conspiracy theories, technology, voting online. People can fix elections. Yeah. How do we change that culture?
We are in an era of misinformation where, people are getting information in a way that is not necessarily trustworthy or accurate. And so we all have to be critical consumers of everything that we read.
No way. No one would ever put misinformation out there.
Especially to further political agendas.
It's funny you mention this. Every once in a while, I go down that rabbit hole of Googling my name.
Oh no, Sean, don't do that.
I know.
101.
You know what it's like? Do you know what it's like?
Don't read the comments.
It's like, when you get sick and you go on WebMD.
I know.
And you
never tells you what you have. No, but it makes you feel worse.
You put in your symptoms and you actually misdiagnose yourself and actually think you still have. Yes. You think you have that. So actually,
but we keep going back.
Recently, I Googled my name a couple days ago. I think because I was bored and there was nothing open here because of the snowstorm. And I'm looking, it's like, you scroll down, you go down that rabbit hole, and it says Sean O'Brien net worth.
Oh, no.
Like, all right, let me see what my net worth is according to AI, right? Yeah. And it had some ridiculous amount of net worth where it stated I made all this money from things that I've never been involved in my life and will never be involved in my life. Yeah. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like,
scary, isn't it?
How do people get away with that?
I know. It's scary.
This episode is brought to you by LaborFirst, the leader in healthcare navigation and advocacy for plan sponsors, union members, and retirees. Navigating healthcare isn't easy, especially when it comes to Medicare, and it shouldn't fall on our retirees' shoulders alone. That's where LaborFirst comes in. They work one-on-one with members to help them understand their benefits, resolve issues, and to get the care they have earned. From answering tough questions to fixing billing problems, LaborFirst is in your corner every step of the way. No call centers, no runaround, just healthcare advocates who actually care. LaborFirst was founded by a proud Teamster son and grandson. For over 60 years, his father and grandfather led Teamsters Local 837, now Local 107 in Philadelphia with pride, purpose, and grit. That same union spirit runs through everything LaborFirst does today. Now, hundreds of union health plans trust LaborFirst as a true partner, delivering results, supporting members and retirees, and never forgetting who they're working for. When it comes to protecting what your members have earned, LaborFirst stands with you. Visit LaborFirst.com to learn more. That's LaborFirst.com. This episode is brought to you by Catches Law Group, proud advocates for injured workers and their families since 1986. If you've been hurt on the job, navigating the workers' comp system can feel like fighting an uphill battle. That's where Catches Law comes in. They've recovered over $3 billion for hardworking people just like you, and they don't back down when your rights are on the line. They know what it means to stand shoulder to shoulder with unions and workers across the country, because at Catches Law, it's not just about compensation, it's about justice. To learn more, visit catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com. And I've got to tell you, I've single-handedly had the opportunity to work for 30 years with Catches Law. I've seen how hard they fight for injured workers and take care of the injured workers' family and guarantee that our injured workers are protected throughout the process. Again, to learn more, please visit catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com.
Well, what's happening as a result of that is I think we are reconnecting with we have to reconnect with just human to human conversation again, right? In the workplace,
right.
In places of worship, in our homes, in our communities. That's the people we can trust the most are the people around us.
So I made sure I texted that article to my two kids.
Oh no.
I said, listen, when you come across this, don't make any mistake. We have no money. We have no net worth. So don't get your hopes and dreams up.
Yeah.
My goal as a parent is to give you realistic, expectations.
Yeah.
And we don't have any expectations right now.
And hard work. You wanted to say Sean O'Brien, the hardest working guy in labor.
We
right?
We try. So getting back to 2020.
Yeah.
Election happens.
Yeah.
Joe Biden wins the election, President Biden, all kinds of allegations.
Yeah.
You were, I think, categorized as a rogue Secretary of State by
point of pride for me,
President
by
Trump.
the president. Yeah.
If people aren't talking about you, they're not thinking about you, so it's a good thing. What was that like? I mean, you had personal attacks.
Yeah.
You had death threats.
Yeah.
You had people show up at your house.
Yeah.
The January 20th insurrection, you were very vocal about it. Can you walk us through, post-election?
Yeah.
Through 2020 when you went through?
I'll say two things. One, I was really proud of the 1,500 clerks, bipartisan professional clerks, both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, who worked to make sure that election was smooth. In the midst of a global pandemic, we had the highest voter turnout to that point in state's history and a secure, accurate election. And we had the results of that election ready within 24 hours of the polls closing. So we hit all our
Where
marks.
did you rank in voter turnout nationwide?
We were in the top 5.
You were the top 5?
Yeah. And that was the election where we also led the nation in youth turnout. So we were like, what a success. In spite of all of the challenges, democracy prevailed and thrived because of partnerships, bipartisan partnerships and work around the state. And then to have to battle to protect that work, to protect those results in the weeks that followed, it was really scary. I remember the times where getting a letter from the president, no matter who they were, Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, anyone, was a point of pride, right? You hang it on the wall, you frame it. Here I was getting tweets from the president of the United States accusing me of things that were completely false. And that's where I sort of, my husband's military is in the Army. So that's where I sort of like the military spouse in me comes out. The person who honed their strength working in civil rights in the South came out, and you simply say, no, that's false, Mr.
Right.
President. This is the truth. You lost. And to be willing to stand up and speak truth to power in that moment, when it means people come for you, is scary. It is scary. But it's also what we need from leaders right now, frankly, because if we don't speak out against injustice and for the truth, then those who will spread lies to further their own agendas win. And that, to get back to your other question, that's why I'm in this work, because I believe in speaking truth to power on behalf of the people that I represent. And I know that can come to great cost and challenge and threats, but I always tell my team, let it come. because this is the work I signed up to do. My heroes are the folks who stood at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, and marched forward anyway into a sea of Alabama state troopers, knowing that violence awaited them because they believed in the Constitution and the power of one person, one vote. That's who I want to be. That's who I've always been. That's who I'll be as governor. And in that moment in 2020, that's who I became.
Right. So I listened to a podcast you did recently, or an interview you did recently. You made an interesting point that kind of stuck in my mind is you have a 9-year-old son.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, he's going to make a decision whether he wants to live in the state of Michigan or not live in the state of Michigan. How can you change people as a governor from wanting to leave a state of Michigan? Like, what are some of your programs you're going to promote? What are some of the core values you're going to try and reinstate? And what is your platform for creating jobs?
Yeah, it comes back to making Michigan the best place to be a kid, to raise a kid, and to call home and retire with dignity. The best place in the nation to do that. And we're not that right now.
I think it's the second best, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, it can be among the best.
You do have some Boston roots,
how about that? I went to school there, moved to Detroit to clerk for a civil rights judge, Damon Keith, stayed to teach civil rights law and election law at Wayne State University, and which I ultimately became the head of that law school. I'm rooted in the Midwest, grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, obviously rooted in working class values and believe in education, which is why also as governor, I want to make sure Michigan leads the nation.
So where do you claim home,
Michigan
or Pennsylvania?
Oh, Michigan! Come on.
Oh, I
I've lived there for decades. In Detroit for decades.
I like the gritty Pittsburgh, PA.
Oh, of course, it honed me. It's where I grew up, and my parents still live there. But it's Pittsburgh's not that different from Detroit. Pennsylvania's not that different from Michigan. We've got hardworking people in those states who are good people, solid people, gritty people who believe in showing up for their families and doing well. And so to make Michigan the best place in the nation to raise a kid and be a kid, you got to have good schools. You got to have well-paying jobs. Right now in Michigan, 6 out of 10 jobs pay $60,000 or less. In this economy, you can't make.
Yeah, we always make it a point to always talk about community.
Yeah.
When you have good, high-paying middle-class jobs, you have good communities. You have great communities.
Exactly.
You got great school systems. But, Michigan has seen a downturn over the last 20, 25 years. I mean, you can talk about, the bad policies of trade deals that allowed auto manufacturers to set up shop in third world nations and destroy jobs, which I think we're trying, or the auto industry is trying to come back, some steel industry. What kind of jobs are you looking to create?
Well, we certainly have to invest in manufacturing jobs because Michigan is a state that built things. We built the middle class, we build cars, and we led the nation in when we lead in manufacturing. In addition to that, we have to prepare our workforce for the jobs of tomorrow, advanced manufacturing, other types of developing clean energy technologies, right? Actually building things for tomorrow as well as things of today. And again, that's what we do. We innovate. We've got some of the best research universities in the country, in our state, and we've also got some of the best infrastructure to build things. So we've got to invest in the skilled trades. One of the things I want to do as governor is ensure no matter who you are or where you live, when you graduate or in mid-career, you can get a paid apprenticeship in the skilled trades so that you learn while you earn and actually build the skills, if you don't have them, that you need to have that advanced manufacturing job or any type of job where we're able to create things and build things, because we're always going to have to do that. And we can do that while protecting the values of labor, while protecting the men and women in the working class and middle class, and ensuring that you have benefits, that you're safe in the workplace, and that you have well-paying jobs. My economic plan is sort of based on 3 things: people, places, and jobs. People, investing in people, skilled trades, apprenticeships, education, all of those things that will actually create that workforce. Places, investing in communities, making sure you can afford to live where you work, affordable housing, affordable healthcare, affordable energy costs, all the rest. But then third, working with anyone to bring good jobs to Michigan and grow them as well. I want us to be the small business capital of the nation.
So, there was some tariffs that the president announced early on in his
They have not been good for
year.
Michigan. Yeah.
Why haven't they been good for Michigan?
Well, I think a lot of reasons. First, you have the tariffs themselves can do great things to ensure and restore manufacturing in our state.
Right. So think about this, and I always talk about this.
But these aren't that. Yeah.
Like, you want to you want to put tariffs on automakers that don't produce vehicles, in the United States. And there's been some talk that we want to bring manufacturing of autos back into the United States. I think some companies have made some commitments. And that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, but it's not a good thing when there are tariffs hitting our partners in Canada and I live in Detroit, so I'm right on that border. And a lot of times to build a car in Michigan, you need to be able to work with our counterparts across the lake, across the river, to get types of things that you need to build the cars in Michigan.
But couldn't we manufacture those types of things that we get from other countries in the United States?
Well, right now the ecosystem is set up that it's a partnership with folks who work in Windsor and in Detroit, and so the tariffs, if they're done with a sledgehammer and not a scalpel, they actually create more difficulty.
There's got to be some finesse involved.
Exactly. And so that's why, as governor, I actually want to invest, work as many governors have done to create subnational agreements with our Canadian partners, so that we can ensure we have all the tools we need to build things in Michigan, and that the blunt force, chaotic tariff policies that change on a whim, frankly, that are not based on science or data or what works, or just sort of like, what are we going to do today type of policy, that hurts us. But a thoughtful, strategic, data-driven, collaborative tariff plan that actually ensures we're able to build more things in Michigan, and partners with others to do that, subnational agreements that enable us to get the tools we need to do that, that will help generate new jobs.
And what are some of the new jobs you want to create in Michigan?
Well, I think we do need to diversify what we're building, right? One of the things that is a growing area is climate and clean energy technologies. We can innovate those technologies and then build them. Build solar panels, build infrastructure to move into a clean energy environment. So building and innovating is in our blood. It's who we are as Michiganders, but making sure we're building not just the vehicles, the cars of tomorrow, the roads of tomorrow, but also making real the technology of tomorrow, so that we're building an infrastructure that helps us all and the nation transition into not just a clean energy economy, but a world in which we're building things to mitigate the negative impact of climate change, which we're all experiencing every day.
But we have a lot of industries that provide good middle class jobs that are kind of being threatened with all the clean energy initiatives that states want to enact. And you look at the oil division, you look at oil, you look at gas, natural gas, you look at pipelines, you look at all stuff, coal, all stuff that's a lot cleaner than it was 20 or 30 years ago. Do we sacrifice those jobs for clean energy?
No, it's about diversifying. It's about all of the above. It's about building the bigger opportunity for everyone. It's the same thing I've done with elections, right? It's about options, diversifying how you vote, diversifying how you work, and also investing in small business growth, so that it's easy if you have an idea to build a business in Michigan. I want it to be as easy and as efficient to start a business and grow in Michigan as it is to get your license renewed, right? So to me, it also all gets back to just a government that's working well, that's efficient, that's showing up when you need it and then getting out of the way. That actually creates jobs. An economic development corporation that is working with businesses in Michigan and manufacturers to expand opportunities, to build new plants that will create new things, while also investing in a workforce to staff those plants and give people real opportunity to work.
So there's no doubt there's some friction between you and President Trump right now.
Sean, I'll work with anyone if it's going to create jobs and drive down the cost of living. Right. But I'm also going to stand up to anyone who would try to silence the voice of the people, even if, no matter who they're voting for. It doesn't matter who it is, but even if it's the most powerful
and you're the
front
runner. You're the front runner in the Democratic field. That you're going to have a lot of people in the primary, I believe. How many?
We'll see. I mean, right now, I think there's one other person in the primary. That we'll see ultimately how things grow. What I've been able to do actually is really unite our party, getting obviously significantly more endorsements than anyone else, including the support of the top two Democrats in the legislature, Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks and House Leader Ranjiv Puri, and also the majority of Teamsters locals in the state are with our campaign, have endorsed us, supporting us, laborers, UFCW, hardworking men and women who are on the front lines and have too often been left behind by economic policies that don't involve them. So we're building a coalition, which frankly I think anyone seeking to lead the Democratic Party has to do, that involves and is circled around and uplifts the voices of working people, so that we are not only not leaving them behind, but they're at the center, they're at the table as we make decisions to grow the economy.
How's your relationship with Governor Whitmer?
It's good. We're friends.
Yeah.
We're friends. We've been through a lot together over the last decade.
Right. And I'm sure you've had disagreements and you've had dialogue. But, when you make a point of saying, hey, I've brought back or united the Democratic Party, I'm working in a coalition, it hasn't always been like that. That was most evident in this most recent election. But the reason why I asked your relationship with Governor Whitmer is people get so focused on if you have a difference of opinions today and you see it on social media, you see it on podcasts, you see it in the news, like the days of having a disagreement and having dialogue and saying, all right, I disagree with you, but let's find a common ground where we can work together. Instead of just having a disagreement and tweeting something negative out. What are some of the disagreements that you had with the governor and how did you overcome them?
Well, you know, in 2020, I was very focused on making sure our elections were held as scheduled. And there was a lot of misinformation, even in the spring of 2020, that elections were going to be canceled. And so in that time, when we were all grappling with data and emerging issues to figure out how to do the right thing, I was very focused on keeping our offices open so that especially Teamsters and others who needed licenses and others farmers to keep working were able to get what they needed from government to keep working. And also making sure our elections went smoothly and that people could vote safely without sacrificing their health. And so there were some discussions back then about, you know, what I needed to do as the chief election officer and chief motor vehicle officer for the state and what was happening throughout the whole state. And I was committed to, in a time of great uncertainty, giving citizens the clarity and the confidence that our elections would still happen and that I would do everything possible, as we did, to make sure their voice would be heard in that consequential year. That said, I'm more of a CEO. You know, obviously, Governor Whitmer's incredible friend has shown great grit and grace through her leadership and comes up through the legislature. So policymaking is really her specialty. For me, it's running things, running an administration. And so it's going to be important now in this next era that all of state government is run as well as our agency and that our agencies are actually saving people time, saving people money, and getting out of the way so that people can get on with their lives.
And you never really had any public disagreements with the governor?
I'm not like that.
No.
I just like to get things done. Like I'll work with anyone, truly. And so even if people attack me, I'll certainly, you know, speak the truth in response, as we were talking about earlier. But once that's done, we get back to work because
it's simple,
that's
block
what
and
people elect
tackling.
us to do.
Whether you have a D, an R, an I next to your name. I mean, I think you still assume the same responsibilities of representing the people that allow you the privilege to represent them.
What are we doing if we're not getting stuff done for people, right?
If you're drawing lines in the sand because you're affiliated one political party versus the other, how does that help your constituents? How does that help your state? How does that help the economy in your state? How does that help create jobs? Yeah,
you know, I'm really proud that when I transformed our department and made it easier to get licenses, streamlined services, all of that, I did it with a divided legislature, with a Republican-led legislature, because I just sat down and got to know people. And I got to know the people they represent so that I could go to the representative of Rogers City, Michigan, and say, hey, I went to that toy store on Main Street in your district and talked with the business owner there. And here's what he told me. And we could actually talk as humans about how we can show up for the people of Michigan, especially the people who voted to send this representative to Lansing. And so it's about building trust, building relationships, and also recognizing that no one party has all of the answers.
Right.
No one party has all the best ideas, but actually working together, we can come up with the best plan, even if it takes me to a different place than I might have had coming into a negotiation.
I really thought after the election in November of 24, I really thought, you know, the Democratic Party, and I'm a Democrat, you know, we didn't endorse a candidate in the election, which was very controversial. But, you know, the majority of our members, 65% of our members were voting Republican. We still have an obligation to represent the other 35% who were voting Democrat. So it was in our best interest to, you know, not choose one over the other and, you know, see what happens. But I was hopefully optimistic after the election and how the Democrats performed and how they acted, that this would be a shot across the bow, so to speak, and say, hey, you know what, we need to step back, reset, get back to our core values and the disciplines that the Democratic Party had. Like, they were always the party of working people. Right. Even though they were making decisions dating back to, you know, the Clinton administration where they were hurting working people. You know, those trade agreements, NAFTA, CAFTA, China, PNTR, they destroyed jobs, they destroyed industries, they destroyed communities, but we continued to support them. And, you know, they went from the working people's party, in my opinion, because I, you know, witnessed it my whole career, to a party that, you know, kind of abandoned working class people, were dictating instead of asking opinions. And I really thought there was going to be a instant reset and commitment to getting back to core values. What was your opinion on that?
Yeah, I became a Democrat because we're the party of the Voting Rights Act. We're the party of the Civil Rights Act, the party of Medicaid, of Medicare, Social Security, Fair Housing Act. And we haven't been that party in a long time. And so I'm running for governor in part to restore the soul of the Democratic Party, which as governors we can uniquely do because we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. We actually implement these ideas. We actually show up for people. I've done that as Secretary of State. And so for me, it's going to be really important as a Democrat as well, leading not just in our state, but a whole team of legislators, mayors, others in Michigan elected as Democrats, proudly saying this is who we are because we're the party of FDR, right? We're the party of the working people, as you said. And we have a responsibility to continue to be that party, to continue to earn the trust and support of working people. I have sat down in union halls all across Michigan, Kalamazoo, up in the Upper Peninsula, everywhere I go, Saginaw. And when I walk in as a Democrat, people often will look at me with a skeptical eye because we haven't always delivered. Because and I get that, I hear that, and I start by acknowledging that and saying, yeah, people are struggling. Because we haven't done a good job as a state in making sure we're driving down the cost of living for everyone. People are worried, living paycheck to paycheck. Can I pay for medicine and heat my home? So this is our moment to actually do things better. And as governor, my job will be to make sure our Department of Health and Human Services actually is working with everyone in our state to get them access to health care, ensure seamless benefit coverage and the like when you're entitled to benefits, making it easier to build a home so you can, if you're a nurse in Traverse City, you can buy a home and live in that community all across the board. When I talk like that and when I listen to the working men and women who are showing up in union halls and attending apprenticeship programs today, I hear great ideas of what we can do better, and I let them know that I will always have their back and fight for them because that's who we are, and that's the Democratic Party we have to fight.
So as a governor, you talk about healthcare and making it affordable, making it the best healthcare, holding people accountable. We've got a strike going on right now in Michigan at Ford, with which their behavior is awful. We just organized 10,000 nurses at Corewell Medical Center. I think there's 8 locations in the state of Michigan. And these employers are not negotiating good faith. They are not treating these nurses with dignity and respect. And look, you and I both know hospitals don't run without nurses and doctors, more importantly, nurses. What would you do to hold these people accountable and help us get a deal and help us be treated fairly?
I've shown up on those picket lines. I'm the only, I'm a leading Democratic candidate who has done that and actually talked with the nurses who have chosen to spend their life serving the public, healing people who are sick and who are not being treated fairly. This gets back to why I got into politics to begin with. I see my parents in the eyes of every nurse who's being mistreated in the workplace. And the fact that they're not asking for anything other than safety, other than protections, other than not having to work mandatory overtime for hours and hours on end.
And adequate staffing so that patients get the best care.
Exactly. They're advocating for policies for protections in the workplace that will simply ensure they're able to do their jobs with dignity and afford to go home at night and put food on the table.
And more importantly, provide the best care for the people that are in need at that point in time.
The people they're trying to keep healthy and serve, which we need to have a healthcare system that works for everyone. So in talking and marching in working with those nurses who are standing up for themselves, and as I stand with them, it's been incredibly inspiring to also on their behalf talk with executives and others and say, this is what we need to do better. Because we're all in this together. We're all committed to a better healthcare system that puts patients first, not profits. And so I've been, the way I'll be as governor is the same way I've been as Secretary of State.
Right. So in that situation with Ford, they're clearly anti-union. They're clearly trying to break the union
and keep it from growing.
Right, keep it from growing.
Yeah.
How could you help, or what would you do to help facilitate an agreement and growth in there? I mean, I would assume the state provides some sort of funding and a lot of their programs.
Yeah.
If they're not treating workers in any industry in Michigan the way they should be treated or trying to impede their right to organize.
Yeah.
What could you do as governor to, suspend some of their funding or programs? What could you do to help?
Yeah. It starts with, one, not looking the other way. looking at the issue and prioritizing tackling it, making sure too we have regulations in place in our department, our labor and economic opportunity department, to make sure that these regulations actually protect workers. A lot of them need to be revisited because they don't protect workers when we need it, when they need access to care themselves in the workplace. And then sitting down. I'm a listener. I'm a doer. So sitting down with folks on both sides, really understanding and trying to find common ground, especially when emotions are high and there's a lot happening, having a governor come in and saying, listen, guys, we're all in this together. Let's get to the table. Let's come up with an agreement that keeps our values intact, but also enables us to keep serving the people in the healthcare system that we want to serve.
Right. The healthcare system's broken, though. I mean, it is all across the board, because nurses and doctors who used to run hospitals ran those hospitals based upon, true integrity of representing people in need, representing and helping people. And you've seen over the last 2 or 3 decades, big business coming in, private equity, buying hospitals, running them, cutting them, programs, cutting whatever they can, all to satisfy the bottom line of their balance sheet.
Yeah. Profits over people.
And they are compromising the safety of their employees, but more importantly, they're compromising credible medical care that people need and deserve. How can you hold those stakeholders like private equity and all these businesses that buy hospitals just for strictly profit?
Yeah. Well, I think, one, we have to restore a system. It is a broken system. You're absolutely right. And our Health and Human Services Department, as well as our labor policies, need to ensure that hospitals and our entire healthcare system is making patient-driven decisions as opposed to profit-driven decisions. One of the things I want to enable our department, our agency of Health and Human Services, to do is to employ community workers who will work with patients who've been denied healthcare, denied insurance for these very reasons that you talk about, and help them appeal unfair insurance decisions so that they can still get access to coverage in a patient-centric way. That type of support enables us to hold those accountable who are instead running hospitals in a profit-driven way as opposed to a patient-driven way. So by showing up, by making sure our government, our state government is on the side of the people showing up, and whether it's negotiating coverage on their behalf or simply just helping them work through and navigate a complicated process, we can hold accountable those companies that are making decisions that are ripping away healthcare from people. I'm a runner, and I went on a run in Detroit a few months ago, and this woman ran when it was warmer.
You're not running outside now, are you?
It was like in the fall. And this woman ran, I just run to sort of just say, like, I join running groups and I say, come tell me your problems. Let's talk. Every time I do this, people share health insurance problems with me and challenges. And one woman came up to me and told me the story about her dad who had a heart attack, and then insurance denied his ability for care after that heart attack. Even though he did everything right, paid into insurance every year, every month of his life, they weren't there for him. The insurance company denied the patient-centered care he needed, and he lost his life as a result. That is unacceptable. That's a broken system. And when I talk about holding companies accountable that lead to those decisions, it's about making sure state government shows up. So who are those companies?
Blue Cross?
Insurance company.
United Healthcare?
Yeah, any entity that is thinking about profits first and patient care last, and making decisions that would deny necessary patient care to serve the bottom line. That's where we as the state need to come in and actually work on behalf of the people to ensure seamless benefit access, healthcare is available to everyone, that we're working with citizens to appeal unfair insurance coverage decisions, and then also supporting rural hospitals and other health providers that are showing up every day to do the good work. I talked to a doctor in Flint the other day, and I was just saying, like, tell me what you're seeing on the ground. And he said, one, our nurses need support. And I see too many healthcare decisions not made by me, a doctor, but made by insurance companies.
Right. And we get back to, I remember when hospitals were run by doctors and nurses. The boards
we
of
got to
these
recenter that.
The boards
Schools
of these,
need to be
the boards of these hospitals were all had doctors and nurses sitting on them, making decisions. And you look at it right now, and it's like, how can someone that's been in private equity their whole life, may have been an accountant, may have been a CFO, they're going to make decisions on people's health care based upon what?
Right. Yeah.
Based upon what credential?
Exactly. And we're in a moment where it also feels like government is showing up everywhere we don't want it and nowhere where we actually need it. This is where we need it to show up and actually ensure fair healthcare decisions, protections, and access to quality care for the people of our state, of our country, who aren't getting it. And I know that's also one of the things I love about labor is it's a lot of times when when government fails to protect the people, labor steps in to make sure they do, right? And provide that healthcare support and care and insurance denial support and all the rest. So my vision for Michigan is that we're working with labor so that you don't have to do that. We're actually showing up for people.
Well, I mean, it's a great partnership because you think about our health and welfare funds.
Exactly.
We've got some of the best health insurance in the country based upon these funds that we have in different states. And whenever I get in a situation like we're doing at Corewell or Ford or anywhere, where potentially, you're in a fight with a healthcare or hospital or a medical service provided, I always look at the experience in my health and welfare fund and see how much money we've paid into these hospitals and networks and say, where are your biggest clients? The unions are your biggest clients. We use your services more than anybody. We make you millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and you're going to push back when our nurses need an improvement, when your nurses need guaranteed staffing, or your nurses who are the success of your hospital, you're going to push back and say no. They should be prosecuted for that.
And you know what? As governor, when you're having those conversations, I'm going to be sitting right next to you saying the same exact thing.
So let's talk about AI and automation.
Let's talk about AI.
Great
segue.
Your dad, I mean, your husband, is an AI guy.
No, he's not. He's a developer, and he's
I read that online. So they lied.
Did you Google
They
him?
lied.
Yeah, funny that I'm running for governor, and people are saying false things. No, he works to build things. I mean, that's what he does. He's building, among other things, the University of Michigan Center for Innovation in Detroit.
Right.
And he works. His background, he's a military guy, right? His background is in actually organizing people and fighting on the front lines for democracy. So I'm really proud of his work. But to be clear, also I'm my own person, right? And I know that when it comes to AI data centers and all the rest, we need community agreements in place, transparent, rigorous process before anything is built in our state. It's great that they create well-paying union jobs, and I welcome that. But we also have to ensure that we build guardrails around their creation and growth so that we're protecting our water. We're entering into agreements that will drive down energy costs and driving them up. All of those things, that's the role for government to play. That's what I'll do as governor. We want to make sure, as former Governor Granholm talked about, and as she's been talking about, that we do this right, that we enable these jobs to be created, but not at the expense, obviously, of our water, of our energy costs. We can do both. We can do it right, and that's what I want Michigan to lead on.
Yeah, I think people need to, take a step back and look at the effects of AI and all this automation and really understand the potential catastrophe it could cause if we're not paying attention. And oftentimes I will get accused when I push back and fight against automation, against AI in certain situations. We'll get criticized saying we're trying to be an impediment to efficiency and an impediment to technology. And it's not that you want to be an impediment to technology or efficiencies, because look, we're all for technology and efficiencies that are going to make our members' jobs easier and less taxing on their body. But, being an impediment versus being part of the initial process.
It's about accountability.
It's about, hey, tell us about this technology. Explain to us what effect this is going to have on jobs, and where can we create jobs as a result of this technology.
Exactly.
And, when I get accused of, you're trying to be an impediment to technology, you're trying to hurt us, you're trying to hurt our business, I'm like, look, we're not an impediment of technology. We want to be inclusive from the beginning. You look at our brand. Our brand are 2 horses. We delivered goods and services on horses. Early 1900s. I love that. Right? And the biggest threat of technology to us was the combustible engine and trucks. Right?
But you used it to get better and more efficient.
We used it to get better and more efficient.
That's a great analogy.
We also created jobs as a result of it. So,
I love that.
How can you help as a governor to, put a viewpoint similar to what I described in the eyes of the gurus of these AI centers of this technology?
Yeah, I think the role of government right now is to ensure accountability, build those guardrails and efficiency. How do we use this technology, just like we use the calculator to get better at math, to actually make things easier for humans to create things and do our job? And that is our opportunity in this moment. Every challenge is an opportunity, right? An opportunity for growth. And yes, to the extent that technological advancements have always created a challenge, government regulation can come in and actually ensure accountability, transparency, and build the guardrails we need to protect working men and women, and actually leverage it to make things better and enhance what we're already doing. So leadership is what's required, not just allowing tech companies to do whatever they want in our states. That's critical. And that, again, is a role that the Democratic Party—
But are you going to be able to control that if that executive order is not reversed? Because the executive order of states being able to regulate AI and technology under the executive order has been basically a 10-year bar from having any.
Well, we can actually, within the current construct, develop guardrails as a state. We have that state's rights, that state authority to do that, either through legislation or through regulation. And that's the type of thing that we need. We actually have legislation right now in place in Michigan that we need to amend and grow and close some loopholes around to ensure we're building those guardrails. And yes, as governor, my job will be to work within the system to get things done, and to also, when things need to be changed at the federal level, to negotiate those changes, not just on behalf of Michigan, but work with other governors to do that too. That's why this job is so important, because you have to stand in the way of unfettered, taking over of things in our state, put those guardrails in place, demand that accountability, and also being able to work with folks at the federal level when they're doing something wrong to change things so that we can do things better.
Let's talk about your opponents.
Okay.
All right. So Republican opponent.
We're still waiting to find
US
out.
Rep, right?
The Republican field keeps growing in Michigan.
Right,
I think
right.
someone just entered, Perry Johnson just said.
So who do you think the front leader in the
I don't know. We'll see.
Republicans?
I mean, look, no matter what, no one in Michigan running for governor has actually led one of our state's largest agencies in a way that was transformational to getting things done, saving people time, saving people money, and making their life easier. The job of the next governor is going to be to drive down the costs of everything for Michiganders, drive up access to well-paying jobs, and stand up to protect the rights, the freedoms, the safety of everyone in our state. I've done that as Secretary of State. I'm the only one running for governor who has already done those things and has built a track record of results while doing so. I'm going to do the same as governor. And I believe that is why we're able to build a coalition, not just of Democrats, but independents and Republicans in our state who have voted for me before. I won counties in Michigan that no other Democrat won in 2022 when I ran statewide and won by 14 points. So I know how to win. I know how to build coalitions because I get things done.
So U.S. Rep Jones is supposedly going to be the front runner for the Republican.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if he's your opponent, why are you better than him, and why can't he beat you?
Because I am the first candidate and only candidate in this race to actually have a plan for driving down healthcare costs and making it more accessible and affordable for everyone in our state, while at the same time he has voted not once, not twice, 3 times to raise Medicaid and Medicaid premiums on hundreds of thousands of Michiganders in our state, to the extent that affordability and access to healthcare is a critical thing that the next governor needs to address. I've done it. He hasn't.
Okay. What about the mayor of Detroit?
Former mayor.
Yeah. He's running as an independent, probably won't have a primary, says he's labor friendly, always supported unions, was a Democrat at one point in time, Mike Duggan. Why are you better candidate than he is? He took over a city that was always surrounded in controversy, it seems, right? Detroit, always some scandals, and he seemed to have done a decent job. He's run an organization, a big organization, running the state of Detroit. Why are you better than him?
Well, I think we're in a moment.
Not personally, but just professionally.
Yeah, I mean, I have respect for anyone who chooses to spend their life serving the people. And all that to say, I think we also need leaders in this moment who have the moral courage to not run, but instead stand and fight. When we see the Democratic Party not meeting its needs, the needs of the people who it represents, this is the moment where we work together to actually restore the soul of the party, not run from it, because
Right.
it's politically expedient to do so. So the difference is I'm someone who doesn't run from a fight. I'm someone who stands my ground and makes sure that we are working together to build a team, because no one person can do this alone. We need legislators. We need mayors. We need people all around the state committed to these same values if we're going to actually get things done. And then as a team, get in there together all across state government and represent a party and a people that is focused on making improving people's lives and making things easier for everyone in Michigan. So that's my track record. Statewide, every single one of Michigan's 10.5 million residents, all of our voters in every one of our 83 counties, has had a direct experience with my leadership, knowing that I show up and I save them time and I save them money through how I run our agency. That's why I was able to win in 2022 by 14 points, including carrying counties that no other Democrat won. Because no matter who someone votes for or what party they affiliate with, they know I'm a leader who will show up, listen, and deliver results. That's what people in Michigan need right now, and that's who they already know that I am.
On a federal level, based upon your experience, where do you see the midterms? Where do you see the House? Do you think it's flipping back to Democrat?
I think any candidate who runs on a message of driving down the cost of living, increasing access to well-paying jobs, and standing up to protect the safety of our communities in this moment will be successful, because that's what we need. And no matter what label you have, no matter what that's who I want to work with. And so that's who I hope to see candidates across the board talking about, so we can have a real debate about how we increase affordability and all the rest. But when I look at candidates in Michigan who are running to serve in Congress, Kristen McDonald-Rivet, right, incredible leader, who is actually standing up and fighting for working men and women in her district, driving down a cost of living, increasing affordability, fighting for well-paying jobs. That's the type of leaders we need in Congress, in the U.S. Senate, and in Michigan. And that's actually the Democratic Party that we are building in our state right now.
What about the Senate?
We've got lots of friends running in the primary in Michigan, so we'll see how that primary plays out. But it's all gets down to the same message: who is going to deliver best on increasing access to affordable health care? Who's going to fight with me as governor to ensure we're doing those things at the state and federal level? As Democrats, we're building a team of people who I expect, as someone who will be leading our ticket, to all stand with me on those basic policies, driving down the cost of living, driving up access to well-paying jobs, and standing up for our rights.
I mean, as Secretary of State, you've seemed to be always, your platform was, let's work together. Let's bring back this Democratic Party. Do you think you can be that much more influential as a governor to try and set this Democratic Party back in the right direction, reinstill the core values that we once had as a Democratic Party, and remind people who they work for?
That's why I'm in this. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm running. That's it right there. Because my heroes are the ones who in 1965 demanded that the Democratic Party do the same thing. Right? Stand with working people. Mm-hmm. And they did it successfully. That's what we need to do today. And that's what I'm going to demand, not just of myself, but of everyone running as a Democrat this year. That's how we actually rebuild and restore our party. That's the fight. That's the work. Because when we do that, we actually fight for working people. We get things done. We improve people's lives. And I know that's why you're in this fight. That's why I'm in it. And I'm excited because it's also what the people of Michigan, the working people of Michigan want and need from their leaders.
So politics, full contact sport, I always refer it as. There's always a lot of criticism, no matter the good you do, and people tend to focus on the losses more than the victories. But personally, your family, you're married, you have a young son, your parents are still alive. Mm-hmm. How has this affected your personal life? I mean, your son's going to be older in a few years, where he's going to be reading, criticisms, no matter what you do, personal attacks. He's going to look back and read and say, my mother's life was threatened. Yeah. Like, what kind of toll does being in Michigan politics or United States politics take on you and your family? I mean, you have a young family.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Probably one of the youngest leaders in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my kid's 9. My husband served in the Army, front lines, combat veteran. We are honed through service, through actually, I know what it's like to live every day and not know if you're going to get that call from the battlefield, right? And I know the courage that it takes to keep fighting in the midst of.
And that's a
fears.
sacrifice you made early on in your marriage.
Yeah, because we're a service-driven family. That's it. And so we've taught our son the importance of service and also the importance of courage in the face of fear. My son loves roller coasters. I don't know why, but he does.
Seems like our life.
He loves roller coasters.
It's a roller coaster.
And we were asking him a few years ago. I mean, he like rode a roller coaster when he was 4 because he wanted to. And I said, where do you get your courage from, kiddo, to ride these roller coasters? How come you're not afraid? And he said, Mom, Dad, I'm always afraid. But I know the only way I can ever, I'm going to get choked up, the only way I can ever be courageous is if I'm afraid.
Yeah, I read a book one time, and there was a quote in there that said, the difference between a coward and a hero is a coward and a hero, assume the same amount of fear, but it's the action that separates the two.
Exactly.
And which is the truth.
Yeah.
And you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
And if you and your husband sat on your couch, drank beers, and clicked the television, chances are that's what
sometimes we do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Guilty as charged. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
You got to have balance. But we also have inadvertently, through our leadership and service, raised this kid who is defining his life on courage. It's beautiful to see. And there are hard days in this work. We know that, right? And I come home and I very honest and transparent. And I say, honey, I've had a hard day. It's been a rough day. And he says, Mom, if you give up, who's going to fight for me?
Right.
Right? Like, so he's a kid who just is like, he's like when Rocky is like in the ropes.
Is he playing
he's
sports?
Like, get back in that ring, Mom. You have to get up.
Is he playing any sports?
He plays basketball.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. He loves performing. He loves music.
Good.
I've also really seen how important access to the arts is through his eyes,
right,
because he has become a creative kid because of access to the arts in his school. So yeah, he's just a fighter, but it's just, we're all in this together. We see this as a family effort.
What do your parents say?
Like any parent, they just want me to call more, come visit more, right? But they come, they're a part of this too, and they raised me to be a fighter, right? To not give up, to fight for what's right. So I think, like every parent, they just wish they'd get to see me a little bit more.
They're our biggest critics, but our biggest supporters at the same time.
Exactly.
So I have to ask you this question, because I ask every one of my guests this question: if you could have lunch with someone who was not deceased, who would that person be?
Wow. Well, I usually say Bobby Kennedy, because his presidential campaign of '68 is an inspiration for me to run. And so, honestly, I'd want to sit down with Donald Trump and say, like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're making decisions that are hurting our economy. You're using lies to stand. Like, there's so much good you can do as a fighter.
Well, at least, someone that's running for governor and probably will be the governor, it's good to hear that you do want to sit down with the President of the United States.
Because we're all in this together at the end of the day.
Having conversations.
Yeah, and just say, like, what common ground can we find to actually get things done for the people we represent?
So you've actually known me for 60 minutes, right? Who do you think I want to sit down and have lunch with?
I don't know.
You're never going to guess.
Paul McCartney. I don't know.
Snoop Dogg.
I was close. Musician.
Close. Paul McCartney and Snoop Dogg? Oh, my good
not a
God.
Politician, a musician. Tell me why. Why Snoop Dogg?
Oh, you know what? Because I love,
it would be amazing.
You watch him,
to
right?
look through life
You think about what he's done in his life. He came on the rap scene, was considered a gangster rapper, but has been with the same woman for 35 years, coached his kids' football team. He's best friends with Martha Stewart.
Yes.
You talk about a well-rounded person, and he's good in the community.
True.
And
that's a great way to run. I mean, and you would eat that lunch best friends with him.
I think he's friggin' hilarious, to be honest with you. So
that's a great one. We'll invite them both. We'll all have lunch, the four of us. Donald Trump, Snoop Dogg, you and me.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on Better Bad Ideas.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Sean.
We don't know if running for governor or public office nowadays is a better bad idea, but look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise.
And welcome you back on Better Bad Ideas anytime you want to come back here.
Can't wait. I'll be back anytime. Thank
you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.